The Hittites launched a successful attack on the armies of Re and Amun, dealing a heavy blow to the Kemites, a reference to the black people of Kemet. The battle started going in the enemy's favor, and Pharaoh Ramesses II found himself deep in enemy lines, almost completely surrounded by the chariots of his adversary. In this difficult moment, Ramesses II prayed to God, the almighty creator of the universe, with a plea that is still remembered today. This is the first documented prayer to a single creator of the universe in recorded history. I call to you, O our Father Amun-Ra. We are surrounded by unfamiliar enemies with hostile intentions. These nations have come together against us to harm the Kemites, black people, and steal our riches. We are alone, with no one by our side. I raise my prayer from distant lands. My cry reaches Waset, and I hear your footsteps coming to help us. Glory to you, O Amun-Ra, Master of the universe. In the 5th year of Pharaoh Ramesses II's reign, he faced off against the Hittite king Muwatallish in the Battle of Qadesh, located near the Orontes River. This battle is remembered as one of the greatest in ancient history. It featured a large-scale clash of chariots, which was the dominant style of warfare during the late Bronze Age in the ancient so-called Near East. Both the Egyptians and the Hittites were masters of chariot warfare, and at Kadesh, they each used unique tactics developed over centuries to try to gain the upper hand. On the morning of day 9 in late May, during the 5th year of his reign, Pharaoh Ramesses II awoke in his camp, which was positioned just a day's march from the city of Kadesh. The Egyptian army, split into several divisions, was strategically preparing for the upcoming battle against the Hittites, led by King Muwatallish. The location of Ramesses' camp was on a high mound identified as Kamwat el Harmel, which overlooked the river Orontes. Ramesses, familiar with Kadesh from past campaigns with his father, planned to have all his troops and reinforcements, known as the Ne'arin, ready within a few days. Their timely arrival on day 10 helped the pharaoh out of a dire situation, but it wasn't a surprise. The Egyptian army needed time to rest after their long march, and it was expected that they would be fully ready to fight by day 11. Both Ramesses and Muwatallish knew Kadesh would be the battleground, but neither knew the exact location of the other's forces until their scouts reported back. This vital information would determine who had the upper hand, as the side that was ready first could dictate the terms of the battle. Preparedness and timing were crucial in determining the outcome of this major clash. On the morning of day 9, Pharaoh Ramesses II and the Egyptian corps of Amun began their descent from the hills, preparing to cross the Orontes River near Shabtuna. This was a slow and cautious process, despite the fact that some historical accounts seem to treat the crossing as insignificant. In reality, crossing the river would have taken several hours, especially considering the size of the army and the large baggage train that accompanied them. The Amun Corps, being the most advanced unit of the Egyptian army, had a large entourage, including royal family members, servants, and scribes. This meant that the crossing wasn't a quick affair. The movement stretched from mid-morning to early afternoon as they made their way towards Kadesh. This slow and deliberate crossing played a key role in Ramesses' larger strategy, as it allowed him to maintain order and readiness within his army, setting the stage for the approaching battle. Ramesses divided his forces into 4 main corps: Amun, Re, Ptah, and Sutek, each named after an Egyptian god. This organizational structure allowed him to control and manage different units more effectively. The Amun Corps led the way as the advanced unit, while the others followed closely behind. Shortly after Ramesses II and his troops crossed the Orontes River, 2 Shasu Bedouins were captured and brought before the pharaoh. They provided false information, claiming that Muwatallish, the Hittite king, and his army were far from Kadesh, in the land of Caleb to the north of Tunip. This was a deliberate deception, orchestrated by Muwatallish to mislead Ramesses and make him believe that the Hittites were not nearby. Muwatallish's strategy was clever. By feeding Ramesses false intelligence, he aimed to lower the Egyptian king's guard. The Bedouins even flattered Ramesses by suggesting that the Hittite army was avoiding Kadesh because Muwatallish feared the mighty pharaoh. This flattery played into Ramesses' ego, causing him to underestimate the situation. Meanwhile, the Hittite army was already positioned near Kadesh, fully rested and prepared for battle. Ramesses, believing he had more time, was caught off guard. The Hittites had won the strategic advantage, giving them the upper hand in the battle to come. This clever ruse cemented Muwatallish's reputation as a skilled strategist, as he managed to deceive the Egyptians and disrupt their preparations for the impending fight. Ramesses, the second's confidence in the false information given by the captured Shasu Bedouins, led him into a dangerous situation that nearly caused disaster for the Egyptian army. Believing the Hittites were far to the north and not a threat, Ramesses made camp near Kadesh, assuming he had outmaneuvered his enemy. The Egyptian camp was set up in a secure and organized manner. A defensive perimeter was established, shields were positioned for protection, and a shrine to Amun was placed at the center, along with Ramesses' grand tent. The atmosphere in the camp was calm, with Ramesses feeling triumphant. However, this tranquility was shattered when one of his scouts returned with 2 prisoners found near the camp. After a brutal interrogation, the prisoners revealed that the Hittite army was not far away, but fully equipped and ready for battle, positioned just behind Kadesh. This revelation shocked Ramesses, as it became clear he had been deceived by the earlier false reports. The Hittites were already in place and prepared, leaving the Egyptian army in a vulnerable position. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Ramesses quickly convened his senior officers. They unanimously agreed that the only solution was to urgently gather the remaining Egyptian forces and reinforce the camp. Orders were sent to speed up the arrival of the other corps and the Nearin reinforcements. At this moment, Ramesses understood that Muwatallish, the Hittite king, had outmaneuvered him, taking the strategic initiative. Ramesses, filled with self-confidence and faith in his destiny as divinely guided by Amun, had dismissed the need for further scouting or caution. Now, with the Hittites poised for attack, the Egyptian army faced a potential catastrophe, forcing Ramesses to scramble and recover from his overconfidence. Muwatallish learned of the Egyptian army's position through 2 key sources. First, the 2 Shasu Bedouins released by the Egyptians reported Ramesses' location south of Shabtuna. Second, Hittite scouts later confirmed the exact position of the Egyptian camp. By the end of day 9, Muwatallish knew where Ramesses was, but he was uncertain of the number of Egyptian troops present. Both the Egyptians and Hittites viewed early arrival at the battleground as crucial. An army that had time to rest before a battle had a significant advantage. By the evening of day 9, the Hittite army was fully rested and ready for action, while Ramesses' forces were scattered and not fully prepared for combat. On the morning of day 10, Egyptian forces under the vizier were still preparing to march when they were suddenly thrown into action. The Hittites initiated a full-scale battle, but due to the misalignment of preparations and communication, fighting erupted unexpectedly. Suddenly, a large force of Hittite chariots launched a surprise attack from the nearby tree line. The Egyptian troops were caught off guard, and their right flank collapsed under the onslaught. Panic spread quickly as Hittite chariots tore through the Egyptian ranks, causing chaos and confusion. Many soldiers abandoned their weapons, and the formation disintegrated. The Hittite chariots, heavy and unable to make sharp turns, continued across the plain, heading toward Ramesses' camp. Egyptian officers, realizing the disaster unfolding, sent charioteers ahead to warn Pharaoh of the imminent Hittite attack. Suddenly, the guards on the southern wall raised the alarm as they spotted large clouds of dust approaching rapidly. Within moments, the surviving chariots from Pireh raced into the camp, warning of the massive Hittite force closing in. Panic spread throughout the camp as soldiers scrambled for weapons, and chariots were hastily prepared. The Hittite chariots, appearing in overwhelming numbers, swept around the camp's western and northern edges before crashing through the defenses, launching a full assault on Ramesses' forces. As the Hittite chariots surged into the Egyptian camp, their momentum began to slow due to the chaos of tents, supplies, and panicking soldiers. Egyptian troops, who had been standing ready, seized the opportunity to fight back, engaging the Hittites in desperate hand-to-hand combat. The chariots became bogged down, horses struggled to move, and Egyptian archers targeted the mass of Hittite forces, causing heavy casualties. Meanwhile, Ramesses quickly prepared for battle. Donning his armor, he led his chariot forces out of the camp for a rapid counterattack. Seeing the disorganized Hittite chariots still focused on plundering the camp, Ramesses ordered his troops to fire volleys of arrows into the dense enemy forces. The Egyptian chariots, skilled in rapid maneuvers, inflicted severe damage on the Hittite forces, who were caught off guard and unable to react quickly. As the Hittite forces began to retreat in disarray, Ramesses ordered his fresh chariotry to pursue them. The retreat turned into a rout as exhausted Hittite horses and crews were overwhelmed by the Egyptians. Many Hittite chariots were destroyed as the Egyptians relentlessly pursued them, securing a decisive turnaround in the battle. Muwatallish, the Hittite king, watched from a vantage point near Kadesh as the battle unfolded in a way he hadn't expected. His chariots had attacked prematurely, and now Ramesses II was successfully pushing them back, threatening to destroy many of the Hittite chariots. Desperate to divert Ramesses' attention and relieve his retreating troops, Muwatallish called upon his personal entourage, including high-ranking family members and allied leaders, to form a second wave of chariots and attack the Egyptian camp. As this hastily gathered force crossed the Orontes River and reached the camp, they were met by a surprise counterattack from the Egyptian Ne'arin reinforcements, who arrived just in time. The Ne'arin unleashed volleys of arrows, overwhelming the Hittite chariots. At the same time, Ramesses and his remaining chariots joined the attack from the south, further devastating the Hittites. Many of the Hittite soldiers were forced to flee, with some drowning in the river as they tried to escape. By the end of the battle, the Hittites had retreated across the Orontes, leaving behind smashed chariots and many dead. Ramesses' forces regrouped, and Egyptian scribes counted the fallen, many of whom were high-ranking Hittites. With the arrival of the Egyptian corps of Tar, the battle was finally over. It's often said that the Battle of Qadesh ended in a draw, but according to Sheikh Anta Diop, the event suggests a clear victory for the Egyptians. The Hittite king addressed Ramesses II with these words. The great chief of Kati, a reference to the Hittite land, says to the chief of Kidi, "Prepare yourself, for we will go to Egypt. The word of the king, Ramesses II, has been fulfilled. Let us follow him, for he grants life to those who love him. And so all the world loves him, and Kati becomes united with him." Until the lions have their own historians, the tales of the hunt will always glorify the hunter.